I flew to Los Angeles without warning, dreaming of a joyful reunion, but found my daughter dying alone in intensive care. Meanwhile, her husband was partying on a luxury yacht, spending my money on champagne and entertainment. Enraged by his betrayal, I left him penniless. An hour later, he lost his mind, and that was just the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I reached for my phone while the aircraft started descending toward LAX, my fingers shaking a bit as I composed the message. Touching down in 20 minutes. This is going to be the greatest surprise she's ever had. Hitting send seemed like a vow I was finally fulfilling. 3 years had passed, far too much time. The picture tucked in my wallet had worn smooth from constant touching. Matilda beaming in her kitchen, flowers sprinkled in her dark locks. Emma flashing a gap-toothed smile next to her. Little Jack proudly displaying his crayon artwork. I'd stared at it daily since Martha passed, but this day carried a new weight. Today I was at last addressing the pain lodged in my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting our final descent into Los Angeles International Airport. My calloused hands clenched the armrests as that old excitement surged within me. The previous occasion I'd caught someone off guard was Martha's 50th birthday celebration. That felt like a distant era now. 5 years of mourning had made me a mystery, even to my own child. Yet Matilda's words from our conversation 3 months back lingered. I'm simply exhausted, Dad. Truly worn out. An undercurrent in her voice had stuck with me, eroding my peace of mind. The luggage belt droned on as I stood by, observing other families coming together nearby. A young mom scooped up her little one in a hug. An older pair welcomed their son with open arms. Soon that scene would feature me and Matilda, though she had no clue I was here. Studio City, if you would, I said, easing into the Uber and displaying the address on my device. Heading to visit my daughter. She has no idea. Unexpected arrivals are wonderful, he responded with a foreign lilt, merging into the airport flow. My relatives in Guatemala adore it when I drop in unannounced. The highway extended infinitely forward, palm fronds dancing in the April midday wind. LA appeared just as I'd recalled from my prior trip. Vast, drenched in sunlight, a stark contrast to the quaint Texas community where I'd brought up Matilda. She'd always chased grander horizons, dazzling spotlights. Martha often remarked that our girl inherited her bold nature from me, back in the days when I embraced chances. I attempted to ring Matilda twice on the ride, my digit lingering over her name, then disconnecting before it connected. No, it was wiser to astonish her face to face. Her expression would justify the 4-hour journey and my sore spine. Is this the spot? The driver stopped at a tidy home with white blinds and a modest front yard. Ideal. I paid him in bills, snatched my carry-on, and lingered on the pavement as he departed. The midday rays warmed my back as I approached the entrance, practicing my opening lines. Perhaps I'd kick off with a quip about her aging father mastering online flight reservations. Or maybe I'd simply spread my arms and let her dash into them like she did at age 8. I dug into my bag and retrieved the modest present I'd carried, a handcrafted wooden trinket case I'd built in my home shop, meant to safeguard her grandmother's ring until Emma grew up. Martha would have cherished witnessing the tradition continue. The doorbell sat beneath my fingertip, and for an instant I paused, relishing the build-up. 3 years of calls and messages were on the verge of turning into genuine embraces, shared dinners and tales exchanged in person. I pushed the button and caught the familiar tone resonating within. Then nothingness. I rang it once more, pressing harder this time. The sound echoed through what appeared to be a vacant residence, met by that same empty hush. "Matilda, it's your dad," I shouted, rapping on the door's edge. They might be out back or upstairs with tunes blaring. Children can make quite the racket. Maybe they just hadn't noticed. The quiet persisted. I retreated and examined the home closely for the first time. The rose shrub near the front pane had browned along its tips. Blossoms littered the path like forgotten party remnants. When had Matilda ceased caring for her plants? She used to forward me snapshots of her blooms each spring. Circling to the side entrance, I peeked through the gaps into the rear yard. Vacant outdoor seats were coated in a thin dust layer, and the tiny veggie plot she'd boasted about had shriveled to dry stalks. A kid's trike rested tipped over by the rear entrance, one wheel twirling idly in the gust. Odd, I whispered, heading back to the front veranda. The letterbox brimmed with mail and parcels, some tumbling to the earth. I gathered a handful, Utility statements from 3 weeks prior. Promotional flyers. A box for Gary that seemed baked by the California heat for days. The freshest stamp I spotted was from 10 days back. My pulse quickened, that engineer's mindset activating. When mechanisms break down, there's invariably a rational cause. I simply required additional information. I cupped my palms against the sitting room glass, pressing close. Dim interior, drapes closed, no activity, no TV glow, no hints of domestic bustle. The place seemed deserted, yet I could discern known outlines. Matilda's painting stand in the nook, Jack's play vehicles strewn across the low table. "Pardon me, are you searching for the McCoys?" I whirled to face an older lady in a wide-brimmed hat, coming from the adjacent property, pruning tools in her protected grip. "Yes, I'm Harley Sims, Matilda's dad. Have you spotted them recently?" She halted, dabbing her brow with her wrists back. "Now that I consider it, no. It's been unusually still there. I typically catch the kids' laughter in the mornings, but she drifted off, eyeing my expression. Is all well? I'm certain it is. But my tone rang false even to my ears. They likely took a trip, perhaps seeing relatives. She didn't seem persuaded. Well, I trust they're fine. Such a lovely bunch. As she resumed her yard work, I dropped heavily onto Matilda's front stair, the wooden trinket case still grasped in my palms. The elements didn't align. Matilda would have noted a getaway in our recent chat. Gary was fixated on online sharing. He'd have uploaded images from their destination. I drew out my phone and browsed Matilda's Facebook profile. The most recent update was 6 weeks old, a shot of Emma's classroom craft. Prior to that, total quiet for almost 2 months. My child, who once chronicled every meal and outing, had fallen utterly silent. The late-day shadows lengthened as I remained there, gazing at the mute dwelling. A runner passed by, headphones on, lost in her rhythm. Down the block, a mower roared to life, its noise ordinary and comforting, clashing with the mounting fear in my core. I searched beneath the entry rug, then probed the edge of the planter near the door. No concealed key. The knob twisted fruitlessly in my hold, secured naturally. "All right, Harley," I voiced, attempting to calm my jitters. "Stay composed." There's a sensible reason. But perched on that step, encircled by marks of desertion and disregard, I couldn't dispel the sense that my unannounced arrival had uncovered something far graver than a vacant home. Time to contact Matilda. My thumb paused over her entry briefly before tapping it. Hearing the ring with rising unease, one chime 2-3 directly to voicemail. "Hello, this is Matilda. Drop a note and I'll respond when possible." Her upbeat taped greeting constricted my chest. I ended the call and redialed right away. Identical outcome. Voicemail following 4 rings. Her device was either off, or she was intentionally ignoring. On the 3rd try, I allowed it to continue, resolved to record something if needed. "Hello." The responding voice wasn't Matilda's. Masculine, expert, guarded. "Matilda, Dad here. I'm in LA. Meant to astonish you, but the place is empty. And sir, this is Dr. Rivera from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Are you related to Matilda McCoy?" Reality skewed. I clutched the device firmer, my free hand bracing on the porch rail. "What? Yes, her father. Why do you possess her phone? Where's she?" A delay that stretched eternally. "Mr. Sims, I regret to tell you that your daughter is presently in our intensive care ward. She's undergoing care for late-stage cancer, and her state is grave." The term struck like hammer blows. Cancer. Grave. My sight hazed at the borders. Impossible. My words emerged, choked. "I spoke with her 3 months ago. She was okay. Just fatigued from wrangling the children. Sir, I realize this is jarring. Advanced cancer can advance swiftly, and individuals frequently withhold their condition from kin at first. She's been with us for multiple weeks." Multiple weeks. The unkempt yard, the stuffed mailbox, the hushed residence. It all snapped into focus with dreadful sharpness. "Where's Gary?" Her spouse. "Where are my grandkids?" Another hesitation. "I can't discuss other familial issues, Mr. Sims. Privacy rules bar me from divulging specifics, but I urge you to head to the hospital at once. Your daughter has been inquiring about you." My hands trembled so fiercely I could scarcely maintain the phone. "What's the location?" "I'm on my way. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, 8700 Beverly Boulevard. Request the Oncology Intensive Care Unit upon entry. Dr. Rivera." The connection severed. I gaped at the device in my quaking grasp. The midday light abruptly too glaring, too heated. Too ordinary for a reality where my daughter was fading and I'd been unaware. 3 months prior, she'd mentioned fatigue. Fatigue. And I'd been so immersed in my personal sorrow, my seclusion, that I'd overlooked every clue. The wooden trinket case slipped from my knees, rattling on the porch stairs. Martha's ring was intended for Emma eventually. But what if eventually never arrived? What if I'd arrived too late? I rose abruptly, vision swirling, and lurched toward the road with robotic steps. A cab. I required a cab. The hospital details seared into my thoughts. 700 Beverly Boulevard, Oncology Intensive Care Unit. As I hailed a yellow taxi, one notion looped through my days. How had I turned into the sort of dad who learns of his daughter's terminal illness from an unknown voice? The cab door closed with a decisiveness that appeared to lock away my former existence. I passed the driver the wrinkled note with the hospital details, my hand still unsteady from the revelation. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, please. As quick as possible. Traffic's thick this hour, sir, but I'll try my hardest. His gaze met mine in the mirror, spotting my turmoil. Emergency, my daughter. The phrases caught in my gullet. She's passing. The vinyl cushion under me seemed alien, too sleek, too everyday for a person whose reality had crumbled. Out the pain, LA congestion flowed in its typical frenzied pattern. Folks commuting from jobs, grabbing supplies, pursuing routine days, while mine plunged into horror. Cancer, stage 4, critical. I retrieved that faded photo once more, examining Matilda's joyful expression. How had I overlooked the indicators? That final call replayed endlessly. Just worn out, Dad, truly worn out. The manner she'd phrased it, as if bearing an unseen burden, I'd chalked it up to parenting, job pressure, the standard drain of rearing 2 youngsters. What type of parent was I? The cab jerked ahead in halting traffic, and recollection surged unbidden. Matilda's initial unsteady strides toward me over our aged kitchen tiles, limbs extended, pure faith in her gaze, guiding her on a bicycle in the green space behind our home. Jogging beside until I saw she'd been cycling alone for 50 yards. Her secondary school commencement. That beaming grin as she took her certificate, escorting her to the altar 2 years past. Gary had vowed to cherish and shield her. "I'll look after your daughter, sir," he'd stated, clasping my hand with that assured hold. Where was he at this moment? Why hadn't he notified me when she fell ill? I called Gary's line for the 4th occasion directly to voicemail yet again. "Gary Harley speaking. I'm in LA. Matilda's hospitalized and you must contact me right now." The recording seemed insufficient, overly courteous for the fury swelling in my core. My daughter battled for survival and her partner was absent. "Quicker, please," I urged the driver. "She's merely 38 with 2 small children." "So youthful," he whispered, speeding through an amber signal. "I have a daughter as well. Similar age. This shatters the soul." Through the glass, palms waved against the midday heavens, unconcerned with mortal pain. Martha used to comment that LA resembled Eden, but evoked solitude. She'd been accurate about that, as with countless matters. If Martha lived, she would have detected Matilda's ailment. Mothers possess that instinct, that unseen bond. She would have perceived an issue in those discussions, would have probed for facts, perhaps even traveled here personally. But Martha had departed, and I'd devoted 5 years submerging in my own mourning rather than serving as the parent my daughter required. I creased and recreased the hospital note, folding it into a tiny block. The sheet felt tangible, authentic, the sole firm element in a day grown dreamlike. This morning I'd been a former engineer organizing an impromptu trip. Now I raced through LA jams to visit my ailing daughter. The cab arrived at the hospital doors as dusk started tinting the sky violet. Sleek glass and metal towered ahead, formidable and sterile. Through the panes I glimpsed individuals striding deliberately along lit halls. Physicians, caregivers, kin managing their own ordeals. "Here you go, sir." The driver's tone was soft. "Best wishes with your daughter." I gave him bills with unsteady hands, seized my carry-on and stood on the walk as he left. The sliding doors hissed apart, unveiling a contemporary foyer decorated with vibrant art pieces that appeared grotesquely upbeat. I neared the reception where a gentle-featured lady glanced up hopefully. "Oncology Intensive Care Unit," I uttered. "My daughter, Matilda McCoy. Identification, please, and sign here." She provided a guest tag and form. Elevators to the 7th level. My fingers quivered as I penned my name. The lift ascent seemed interminable, each story indicator glowing like a timer to ruin. When the panels parted, the sterile odor assaulted me instantly. That distinct medical blend of disinfectants and mortal anguish. Dr. Rivera stood at the nursing desk, a sturdy man with compassionate eyes framed by thin spectacles. He offered his hand as I neared. "Mr. Sims, pleased you arrived without issue. How is she?" The query emerged raspy. "Steady currently. The chemo hasn't worked as desired, but she's reacting to the ongoing regimen." He motioned along the corridor. "She's been seeking relatives. She'll be glad you're present." We proceeded by chambers echoing with faint machine tones and murmured talks. Through one opening, I saw an aged gentleman clasping his spouse's hand. Through another, a youthful mom narrating to a child with a shaved scalp. "Room 712, Dr. Rivera murmured. I must caution you, the disease has exacted a bodily price, but in spirit and heart she's entirely the same." No preparation sufficed. Matilda reclined, elevated in the clinic bed, linked to devices charting her pulse in consistent emerald waves. Drip lines wound from her limbs to pouches of transparent liquid suspended on steel stands. She appeared so diminutive, so delicate, a mere echo of the lively lady who twirled at her nuptials, but upon spotting me, her features lit up with the loveliest grin. Daddy. The term emerged as a breath, yet it slammed into me like a locomotive. I traversed the space in 3 strides and gently enfolded her in my embrace, wary of harming her. She seemed avian, all pointed edges where softness once resided. Oh, darling. The tears I'd restrained since the call at last overflowed. "I'm here. I won't leave." "I didn't wish to burden you," she sighed into my shoulder. "You were still mourning, Mom, and I believed I could manage it alone." I drew back to study her face, adjusting the flimsy clinic cover over her shoulders, much like I'd secure her blankets when beasts lurked beneath her bed. "Why keep it from me? We could have battled this as a team." Her gaze brimmed with moisture. The physician estimated 6 months, perhaps 8, with therapy. I kept hoping for improvement, that I'd reach out when in recovery, when I had positive updates. 8 months, maybe fewer now. I eased into the seat by her bedside, clasping her hand in both of mine. Her digits were frigid despite the heated space. "Where's Gary?" I aimed for an even tone, but she evidently caught a hint because her look altered. "He mentioned crucial work sessions this week." She averted her eyes to the pane. "Said he'd return by week's end." "When did you last see him?" 3 days ago." The words came out small, ashamed. "He's been distant since the diagnosis. I think it scares him." "Scares him? My daughter was dying and her husband was scared." "Has he been taking care of you? Helping with the kids?" "My neighbor Emma watches them during the day. Gary handles the practical stuff." But the way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself, told me everything I needed to know. I spent the next hour just being present, holding her hand while she drifted in and out of sleep. Each time she woke, her eyes found mine immediately, as if making sure I was still real. As evening deepened outside the window, she finally fell into deeper sleep, her breathing steady and peaceful. I gently released her hand and moved to the window, looking out over the city lights beginning to twinkle like fallen stars. Time to try Gary again. I pulled out my phone, Gary's contact glowing on the screen. This time I'd make him answer. Make him explain where he'd been while his wife fought for her life. First call, 1 ring, then voicemail. He was definitely screening. I typed a text message. "Your wife is in ICU. Call immediately." Minutes passed. Nothing. Second attempt from my phone yielded the same result. But then I noticed Matilda's phone on the bedside table, plugged into the wall charger. Maybe if the call came from her number. I glanced back at her sleeping form, then carefully picked up her phone. Gary's contact appeared in her recent calls, but the last incoming call was from 2 days ago. 2 days since he'd bothered to check on his dying wife. Third call attempt using Matilda's phone, straight to voicemail again. Frustrated, I nearly set the phone down when the screen lit up with a notification. Instagram. The app was still open, logged in as Matilda. At the top of the feed, Gary's story appeared with a red circle indicating new content. I tapped it without thinking. The first image made my blood freeze. A luxury yacht deck gleaming in afternoon sunlight. Champagne glasses catching the sun. Someone's manicured hand holding the flute in a toast gesture. The timestamp read 2 hours ago. I swiped to the next story. Gary's face filled the screen, grinning broadly, arms around 2 other men I didn't recognize. All 3 wore expensive sunglasses and looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine ad. Behind them, the Pacific Ocean stretched to infinity. The caption read, "Living my best life with the boys." Posted 90 minutes ago. While E was learning my daughter had cancer, My vision blurred with rage, but I forced myself to continue documenting. Screenshot after screenshot, each image a dagger twisted deeper. Gary lounging in pristine white cushions. Gary diving off the yacht's diving platform. Gary raising another champagne glass as sunset painted the sky orange. The final story video showed him addressing the camera directly. Nothing like a few days away from reality to clear your head. You know, sometimes you just got to live a little away from reality. His wife was connected to machines and he was talking about getting away from reality. I checked the location tags. Marina del Rey. Less than an hour from this hospital. My hand shook as I typed another message. I see you're having fun. Your wife is dying. Call me. Then another. I have screenshots. We need to talk. Still no response. I paced the small room quietly, trying not to wake Matilda, my mind racing through implications. I was only beginning to understand that yacht rental had to cost thousands per day. Gary was a business consultant. Successful, but not yacht rental for fun successful. Where was the money coming from? Looking back at Matilda's peaceful face, I whispered promises I should have made months ago. I won't let him hurt you anymore, sweetheart. Daddy's here now, and I'm going to fix this. The monitor beside her bed beeped steadily, each tone marking another heartbeat, another moment of life that Gary was wasting while partying with friends. How long had this been going on? How long had she been suffering alone while he played at being single? I returned to the phone, screenshotting everything methodically. The engineering part of my brain took over. Document the evidence, build the case, find the leverage points. Gary might think he could abandon my daughter in her darkest hour. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd forgotten that Matilda had a father who would burn the world down to protect her. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Gary's name appeared on the screen. I looked at Matilda one more time. Her thin face finally relaxed in sleep, then stepped into the hallway. Time to have a conversation. I slipped back into Matilda's room where she lay sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady against the backdrop of monitoring beeps. I'll be right back, sweetheart, I whispered, brushing a kiss across her forehead. Just going to get some coffee. The elevator carried me down to the main floor, past signs directing visitors to various departments. The cafeteria occupied a corner of the ground level, mostly empty now except for a few scattered medical staff. Grabbing late meals between shifts, I bought coffee I didn't want, and found a quiet table in the far corner, pulling out my phone to stare at that yacht photo again. The image burned brighter each time I looked at it. Gary's carefree grin, the pristine deck, champagne glasses catching afternoon sunlight. How does a business consultant afford a $15,000 yacht rental? The question triggered a memory that made my blood run cold. 1 year ago, Gary had approached me about family emergencies, medical bills, he'd claimed. Emma needed dental work. The house required repairs. Could I help them out temporarily by giving him access to my backup account? Just until things stabilize, he'd promised. Matilda doesn't need the stress of financial worry on top of everything else. I'd been impressed by his consideration for my daughter's well-being. What a caring husband, I'd thought, protecting his wife from money concerns. My hands shook as I opened my banking app, navigating to the shared account I'd set up for Gary's emergency access. The transaction history loaded slowly, each entry appearing like evidence in a murder trial. Marina del Rey yacht charters $15,000 posted yesterday. Now Malibu 8503 days ago. Beverly Hills Mercedes service 2400 last week. Rodeo drive shopping $3,200 10 days ago. The list went on and on. A month-so-long pattern of luxury 7 spending, while my daughter wasted away in a hospital bed. Every dollar he'd blown on champagne and yacht parties had come from my account. Every designer purchase, every expensive dinner, every moment of his freedom had been funded by the father of the wife he'd abandoned. I screenshot every transaction, my engineer's mind methodically building a case. The dates told the story. As Matilda's condition worsened, Gary's spending increased. While she was receiving her first rounds of chemotherapy, he was shopping on Rodeo Drive. While she was losing her hair to treatment, he was dining at 5-star restaurants. The parasitic son of a stopped myself before the anger could fully consume my thinking. Rage was useful, but cold calculation would serve Matilda better. I pulled out a small notebook and began writing down key information, account numbers, transaction IDs, a systematic approach to cutting off Gary's financial lifeline. He'd made one crucial mistake. He'd used my money to finance his betrayal. Time to show him what happens when you cross a Texas engineer who spent 40 years solving complex problems. The hospital cafeteria hummed quietly around me. Vending machines, distant overhead pages, the soft murmur of exhausted medical staff. But I was no longer really there. My mind was in full strategic mode, identifying vulnerabilities and planning countermoves. Gary thought he could party his way through his wife's terminal illness on my dime. He was about to learn that every action has consequences, and some consequences arrive with mathematical precision. I finished my cold coffee and stood up, pocketing the notebook with bank information. First step, immediate financial amputation. Cut off his access completely before he could spend another cent of my money. Second step would be more personal. I found a quiet alcove near the hospital chapel, settling into a wooden chair with my phone and notebook spread before me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Planning financial warfare steps away from a place of sanctuary I had no intention of seeking. The bank's emergency line answered on the third ring. First National Emergency Services, this is Amanda speaking. How can I help you tonight? This is Harley Sims, account holder. I need to revoke authorized access on my accounts immediately. I kept my voice steady, professional. I'll need to verify your identity first, Mr. Sims. Can you provide your social security number and your mother's maiden name? I rattled off the information while checking my notes. 45 years of banking with the same institution meant they knew my voice. But protocol was protocol. Thank you. I show Gary McCoy has had authorized access to your backup savings account since April 2022. Are you requesting complete revocation of his privileges? Immediate and permanent removal? Transfer all remaining funds to my primary secured account. I need to inform you this action is irreversible and may affect any automated payments or services linked to that account. Are you certain you want to proceed? Cancel everything associated with his access. Every automatic payment, every linked service, every recurring charge. Each word came out crisp. Final. One moment, please, while I process these changes. The hold music played while I watched a security guard walk past, nodding respectfully. Normal hospital evening routine continuing while I systematically dismantled Gary's financial foundation. Mr. Sims, I've revoked Mr. McCoy's access to the savings account and initiated transfer of remaining funds. That's $127,000 moving to your primary account. I'm also showing 3 credit cards with authorized user status in his name. Shall I cancel those as well? $127,000. Gary had been living off my money for 2 years while my daughter suffered in silence. Cancel every card. Remove him as authorized user on all accounts. Delete his contact information from emergency notifications. Processing now. Okay, that's complete. Mr. McCoy will receive notice that his cards have been deactivated, and any attempted transactions will be declined. Is there anything else I can do for you tonight? Set up fraud alerts if anyone tries to access these accounts using High's information. Already in place, sir. You'll receive confirmation emails within the next few minutes. I hung up and immediately opened my banking app to verify the changes. Account access revoked. Credit cards canceled. Automatic payments terminated. The digital paper trail showed Gary's financial lifeline had been severed with surgical precision. My phone buzzed with the first confirmation email, then another. Each notification felt like justice delivered in electronic format. Let's see how long the yacht party lasts when his credit cards start getting declined. I closed the notebook with a satisfying snap and pocketed my phone. The engineering part of this problem was solved. Identify the system failure. Isolate the problematic component, remove it permanently. Gary's access to my resources now existed only in his own deluded imagination. Standing up from the chair, I felt lighter than I had in hours. Not because the weight of Matilda's illness had lifted. That burden would stay until she recovered, or until she didn't. But the crushing realization that I'd been unknowingly funding her abandonment, that particular torture was over. Gary could keep his yacht for tonight. Tomorrow, when those cards started declining and his calls went unanswered, he'd discover what happens when a parasite loses its host. I walked back toward the elevator, past the chapel door that remained slightly ajar, past the nurse's station where evening shift changes were occurring, normal hospital rhythms continuing, while one small piece of justice had been quietly administered. Matilda was awake when I returned, staring at the ceiling with that distant expression I'd seen too often today. The room glowed softly from monitoring equipment, creating an intimate space separate from the harsh hospital world beyond her door. Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling? I sat down my untouched coffee and pulled the chair close to her bedside. Better now that you're here. She turned toward me and I could see something had shifted while I was gone. Dad, I need to tell you something about Gary. I took her hand, noting how cold her fingers felt despite the warm room. Take your time, honey. I'm here to listen. He changed after Jack was born. Started saying I wasn't contributing enough financially. The words came out slowly, like she was testing each one for safety. The freelance design work got harder when Jack was calicky and Gary said I was a burden. My free hand clenched into a fist under the hospital blanket, but I kept my voice gentle. A burden? You're raising 2 children. He said the medical bills were ruining his future plans, that he'd married a partner, not a patient. She looked away, shame coloring her cheeks. When the cancer diagnosis came, he just shut down, started staying out later, making excuses about work meetings. What kind of man abandons his sick wife? I couldn't keep all the anger out of my voice. I kept thinking if I got better quickly, if I didn't complain about the treatment, maybe he'd come back to us. Be the father Emma and Jack deserve. Tears started sliding down her cheeks. But he's not coming back, is he, Dad? I smoothed her hair back from her forehead, the same way I used to when she was 7 and afraid of thunderstorms. Sweetheart, you are perfect exactly as you are. Any man who can't see that doesn't deserve you. I feel so stupid for defending him to you all these years, making excuses for why he never called you back, why he was always too busy for family visits. She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had. You were right about him from the beginning, weren't you? I'd never said a negative word about Gary to her face. But fathers see things wives choose not to notice. I was wrong about one thing. I thought he at least loved you even if I didn't like him. I never imagined he'd leave you to fight this alone. The worst part is telling Emma why Daddy isn't here anymore. She keeps asking when he's coming home. Matilda's voice broke completely. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her father chose his comfort over her mother's life? A nurse entered quietly to check vitals, giving us a moment's pause. When she left, I leaned closer to Matilda. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore. Focus on getting better. I'll handle everything else. Dad, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you, your only job is healing. Leave Gary, leave the finances. Leave everything else to me. I kissed her forehead. You'll never have to deal with his selfishness again. Exhaustion was overtaking her again, the emotional release draining what little energy she had. Her eyelids grew heavy as she fought to stay present. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. Don't let anger at Gary consume you. I need my dad, not another angry man in my life. I covered her with the blanket as her breathing deepened towards sleep. I promise, sweetheart. Rest now. But as I watched her drift off, I knew it was a promise I might not be able to keep. The man who'd sworn to love and protect my daughter had stolen her money, abandoned her in crisis, and broken our grandchildren's hearts. Some acts demand more than forgiveness. They demand consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The phone buzzed insistently in my hand, the unknown number glowing on the screen. Marina del Rey, area code. I glanced at Matilda, peaceful in sleep, then stood quietly and moved toward the window. Hello? My voice was ice. Harley, what did you do? My cards were declined in front of everyone. Gary's voice cracked with panic and humiliation. Fix this immediately. Where are you right now, Gary? I ignored his demand completely. That's not your business. Listen, old man. You need to restore my access right now or my daughter is dying in a hospital bed. Each word dropped like a stone into still water. And you're partying on a yacht with my money. Silence, then sputtering. How did you? That's not... This is business networking. Through the phone, I could hear it all. Party music, laughter, waves lapping against the hull. The sound of a man whose wife was fighting for her life while he lived it up on someone else's dime. $15,000 for yacht rental, Gary. My $15,000. I kept my voice low, aware of Matilda stirring behind me while your wife was in intensive care. You can't just cut me off. I have rights. I'm her husband. You were her husband. Past tense. I turned to see Matilda's eyes open, watching me with growing understanding. You made your choice when you chose champagne over chemotherapy appointments. Listen, you don't understand the pressure I've been under. The pressure? My voice hardened. What pressure, Gary? The pressure of having unlimited access to my bank account while abandoning your family? His voice shifted, becoming calculating. Restore my access or I file for divorce and take the kids. I'll make sure Matilda loses everything in court. That was his mistake the moment he threatened my grandchildren. Gary, I said quietly, and something in my tone made even him pause. You just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic life. Behind me, I heard Matilda's sharp intake of breath. She was fully awake now, listening to every word, finally hearing her husband's true voice. Selfish, threatening, utterly without remorse. I know exactly where you are, I continued. I know exactly what you've been doing. I know exactly how much of my money you've been spending while my daughter fights for her life. And now I know exactly what kind of man threatens to steal children from their dying mother. You can't do this to me. I have a reputation to maintain. People are watching. Yes, they're watching. They're watching you get your credit cards declined because you're a parasite who can't pay his own bills. Gary's voice cracked. Harley, wait. Let's discuss this reasonably. I made some mistakes, but we can work this out. I'll come to the hospital right now. I looked at Matilda, saw the tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. Finally understanding who she'd married, finally seeing her father protect her the way a real man protects his family. No, Gary, I said softly. We can't work this out. The silence stretched between us, Gary's panicked breathing audible over the connection. In the background, I could hear his world crashing down. Yacht engines stopping. Voices arguing about payment. The party atmosphere dissolving into chaos. Harley, are you there? Please, I can explain everything. I turned from the window and walked to Matilda's bedside, taking her hand while keeping the phone pressed to my ear, her fingers intertwined with mine, squeezing tight in support. Gary, you chose a yacht over your dying wife. You chose parties over your children. You chose my money over your family's future. My voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but each word cut like a blade. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. I can change. I'll be different. I'll come home and take care of everyone. If you ever approach my daughter or grandchildren again, I will destroy you completely. Matilda's grip tightened, her eyes wide as she finally heard the protective father she'd needed all along. Financially, legally, socially, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you are. You can't do this. I have rights. I'm her husband. You abandoned your sick wife for yacht parties. You stole money from her father to fund your selfish lifestyle. You threatened to take children away from their dying mother. I paused, letting each fact sink in. What court do you think will side with you? His voice broke completely. I have nowhere to go. My friends won't even look at me after the card thing. The yacht company is threatening to call the police. I made mistakes, but everyone deserves a second chance. You had your second chance every single day for the past 6 months. Every day you chose not to be here. Every day you chose not to hold her hand during treatment. Every day you chose parties over family. Matilda was crying now, but they were tears of liberation. 20 years of making excuses for Gary's behavior. And now she was hearing her father speak the truth she'd been too afraid to voice. Please, Harley, I'm begging you. Just give me enough to get home and we can know. The word hung in the air like a final judgment. You're done, Gary. Done with my money. Done with my family. Done hurting people I love. But I don't have anywhere to... I hung up and immediately blocked his number. The action as finale as slamming a door. Then I sat beside Matilda's bed and pulled her hand to my lips, kissing her knuckles the way used to when she was small and scared. Thank you, Daddy, she whispered. You never have to thank me for protecting you, sweetheart. That's what fathers do. She squeezed my hand tighter. I was so afraid to leave him. Afraid of being alone with the kids. Afraid of admitting I'd made such a terrible mistake. You're not alone. You'll never be alone again. I smoothed her hair back from her forehead. And it wasn't your mistake. It was his. Every selfish choice, every cruel word, every moment he chose himself over his family. That's on him, not you. For the first time since I'd arrived in Los Angeles, Matilda smiled. A real smile, full of hope instead of fear. Get some rest, I said softly. Tomorrow we start planning your future. A future where nobody gets to hurt you ever again. She closed her eyes, her breathing already deeper and more peaceful than I'd seen it all day. The monitoring equipment beeped steadily beside us, counting heartbeats, counting moments, counting the beginning of a new life. Outside the window, Los Angeles sparkled in the night, indifferent to one small family's victory over cruelty. But inside room 712, justice had been served and healing could finally begin. 1 year later in 2025, sunshine streamed through the kitchen window of our new house in Texas, painting golden squares across the hardwood floor, where Emma's art supplies lay scattered in organized chaos. The sound of children's laughter drifted in from the backyard, mixing with the steady rhythm of Matilda chopping vegetables for lunch. I paused in the doorway, watching my daughter move with the energy and grace that had returned month by month. Her hair had grown back thicker than before, framing a face that glowed with health and genuine happiness. The haunted look was gone, replaced by the confident woman I'd raised, the one who'd been buried under years of Gary's manipulation. "Dad, you're lurking again," she said without turning around. That familiar teasing tone that told me everything I needed to know about her recovery. "Just appreciating the view, sweetheart. Still can't believe you're really here." Through the window, I could see Jack teaching Emma how to throw a perfect spiral, their grandfather's football techniques passed down with patient precision. At 8 and 6 now, they'd adapted to their new life with their resilience that children possess when they're finally truly safe. The divorce had been swift and brutal. Gary's threats about custody evaporated the moment his lawyer heard the recorded phone calls and saw the bank statements. A man who'd abandoned his terminally ill wife while spending her father's money on yacht parties wasn't exactly sympathetic to family court judges. "Grandpa," Emma's voice carried through the screen door, "come show Jack how to catch better." "In a minute, honey," I called back, then turned to Matilda. "How are you feeling today?" "Really feeling?" She set down her knife and faced me fully, and I saw in her eyes what Dr. Rivera's tests had confirmed 3 months ago. Complete remission. I feel like myself again, maybe better than myself, stronger. The kitchen timer chimed and she pulled a pan of cornbread from the oven, Martha's recipe, the one I'd taught her years ago. Some traditions were worth preserving. "Remember what you used to tell me when I was little and scared of thunderstorms?" she asked, setting the hot pan on a cooling rack. "That storms pass, but families last forever." You were right. She hugged me tight the way she used to before marriage and illness. And fear had created distance between us about storms, about family, about Gary. I'd never said I told you so about her ex-husband, and I never would. Matilda had suffered enough without adding shame to her burdens. The restraining order spoke louder than any words I might have offered anyway. "Dad, Emma scored a touchdown." Jack burst through the screen door, grass stains on his knees and pure joy on his face. Behind him, Emma performed an elaborate victory dance that would have made her grandmother laugh. "Touchdown celebration calls for extra cornbread," Matilda announced, cutting generous squares that steamed in the afternoon light. Later as evening painted the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink, the 4 of us sat on the front porch swing that had been Martha's favorite feature of our old house, salvaged and rebuilt here where it belonged. Emma dozed against my shoulder while Jack peppered me with questions about the stars beginning to appear overhead. "Will you tell us the story about how you saved Mom again?" Emma mumbled sleepily. "Sweetheart, your mom saved herself. I just helped clear away the obstacles." Like the bad man who went away. Like the bad man who went away. Matilda reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture that had become our shorthand for gratitude and love and the kind of bond that crisis either destroys or makes unbreakable. We'd chosen unbreakable. This is what winning looks like, I thought, watching my grandchildren's eyelids grow heavy in the peaceful evening. Not the moment of victory, though Gary's tearful pleading had been satisfying, but the years of quiet happiness that follow. The ordinary Tuesday evenings when nobody's fighting for their life, nobody's betraying anyone, and the only drama is whether Jack will finish his vegetables. The stars emerged one by one overhead. The same constellations Martha and I had watched from this same swing decades ago, back when Matilda was the age Emma is now. Some things change. Marriages end. People disappoint you. Illness tests every assumption about fairness. But some things endure. The love between a father and daughter, the resilience of children, the satisfaction of protecting what matters most. Tomorrow, Matilda would work on her latest design project, while the kids attended their new school. I'd tend the garden Martha had always wanted, and maybe start that woodworking project for Emma's dollhouse. Normal life, the kind worth fighting for. Tonight, though, we sat together under the vast Texas sky, 3 generations bound by love and tested by fire, finally safe in the peace we'd earned. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.